Stokesay Castle is one of the best preserved medieval manor houses in England, with a fascinating history that blends elements of fortified architecture and domestic comfort. Here's a rundown of its story. Lawrence of Ludlow, one of the richest men in England thanks to the wool trade, started building Stokesay around 1281. He acquired a licence to fortify the house in 1291 as a sign of wealth and prestige rather than a real need for defence. The castle's layout, with its central great hall, flanking towers and a moat, demonstrated a blend of domestic luxury and symbolic strength. Lawrence died in a shipwreck off the coast of Ireland in 1294, leaving his project largely complete. The 14th century was a period of prosperity and consolidation for the family, who retained their ownership of Stokesay, and the castle remained a comfortable rural retreat. The estate benefited from the ongoing wool trade, which continued to fund both improvements and the maintenance of the property. Although there were no major architectural changes made, the property stayed in active use, with the Great Hall still in the centre of domestic life. The 15th century was largely dominated by the War of the Roses, where supporters of the houses of Lancaster and York battled each other to gain control of the English throne. By 1471, it had resulted in the end of the Lancastrian male line and the subsequent creation of the Tudor dynasty via the union of the two houses through marriage. However, throughout the Civil War, Stokesay stayed relatively untouched due to its remote location and lack of military value. It was during this period that Stokesay Castle's ownership transitioned by marriage to the Vernon family, a well-established gentry who made the castle their home. There were some subsequent additions made to the property, but mostly minor, such as improved fireplaces and windows, reflecting changes in domestic living standards of the time. The 16th century and the Tudor period brought peace and prosperity for the Vernons, and they continued to occupy and enjoy the castle. Further modifications in line with the time, such as interior panelling, updated furnishings, and subtle architectural tweaks were added for comfort, and as a private residence it retained its medieval character while adapting to Renaissance tastes. In the 17th century, Stokesay had passed on to William Craven, the first Earl of Craven, who was a courtier and a soldier from London. One of the wealthiest peers in England, he was a keen supporter of King Charles I, and therefore it was no surprise that he took the side of the Royalists during the English Civil War. In 1645, the castle was garrisoned by the Royalists, but surrendered without bloodshed to the parliamentarians. As was the way during this turbulent period of English history, Parliament ordered its fortifications dismantled, but since it wasn't truly defensive, only light damage occurred. It was around this time when the timber frame gatehouse, built around 1640, some 2 years before the war had started, remained unscathed and is now a signature feature of the property. During the 18th century, the castle began to fall into disrepair as it was no longer used as a main residence. Romantic ruin culture took hold, where visitors saw it as a relic of a lost age. There was no major restoration undertaken at this time, but its picturesque decay continued to draw the attention of antiquarians and artists alike. In 1869, John Darby Allcroft, a Victorian philanthropist and a wealthy glove manufacturer, purchased Stokesay Castle and initiated its restoration, sensitively repairing the structure while preserving its medieval elements. His efforts saved the castle from total ruin and began its transition into a heritage site. The castle survived both world wars without damage as Allcroft's descendants continued to own the castle, opening it to the public and dedicating funds from admission towards its upkeep. However, due to the increasing cost of maintenance, Joel Magnus Allcroft, the last Allcroft family member to own the castle, entered an agreement with English Heritage in 1986. English Heritage assumed responsibility for the castle's preservation during her lifetime and inherited ownership upon her death in 1992. Today, it continues to be a popular historic site with visitor-friendly interpretation and events with the emphasis on preservation, digital archiving and community engagement. Stokesay Castle is a rare example of a medieval building that has never been significantly altered or rebuilt, making it invaluable for historians and tourists alike.